All right, welcome to week 16. This week's forum, we are looking at the it's a short article, but it's fairly dense and abstract, talking about the history of political science and the role that revolutions play in the practice of the social sciences. And this is kind of highlighting a kind of difficult to understand aspect of science, and that is that science is practiced by human beings, and human beings have only a partial understanding of the world. We're not working towards omniscience here, and we are operating on the basis of, our fallible intuitions and understandings of the world. Uh, and basically, John Gunnell is saying, how many revolutions has political science gone through? Because some senior people within the discipline have argued that we've had several, and that many people talk about the behavioral revolution as a kind of revolution in political science. Now, underlying all this is a work that came, I believe, in 1962. It was published in 1962 by a guy named Thomas Kuhn, who published a book called The Structure of Scientific Revolutions. And he was kind of piercing the veil that a lot of people had with regard to science and how science works. And what he was effectively saying is that we operate around the ideas of theories, and that theories help us to explain the world. Well, at some point, people get caught up in those theories, and because human beings are sociable, and we start thinking in terms of consensus, and what happens is that these things that he call paradigms emerge that help explain the world and are useful in advancing our knowledge. And in that period when you have paradigmatic dominance, you only have what he calls normal science, where basically scientists are just puzzle solving. They're just resolving small aspects of reality, until a rival theory comes along. And what he typically says is that what happens is that within this normal science, it begins to accumulate facts that don't fit within this paradigm, that the paradigm does not accommodate these new facts, and that increasingly creates tension within the paradigm. And eventually someone else comes along with a rival paradigm that incorporates this new and unincorporable information, and then subsequently you get what he calls what is known as a revolution. Okay, what this boils down to again is this idea of epistemology. How do we know what we know? What evidence do we tend to think matters more than other evidence? And Gunnell's contention is that we've really only had one genuine revolution within the field of political science, and it happened in the 1920s, and it was largely a transition from an older, more discrete model of the state to the idea that we have to use quantitative measures to understand the world. Now, he's basically saying, well, if we've only had one revolution, these folks who have been talking about the behavioral revolution are really not talking about a revolution at all. But in fact, he says it was more of a reformation than a revolution. And the question then becomes, what does that mean? How is that different from a revolution? Because certainly if we're looking at the Protestant Reformation, there were a lot of revolutions associated with that. So, I think Gunnell's point is an interesting one, and I think it's a critical one. And he concludes by basically saying the fact that there's only been one revolution has sort of trapped us in our understandings of politics and political science, and in our vision of what is political, and that has constrained our understanding and really put us at a disadvantage as political scientists in terms of understanding political phenomena. Let's talk about it. And I know, take a look at the study guides. The quiz should be fairly easy this week. There's a very limited number of questions. I'm not trying to blow you guys away in this last semester or the last week of the semester. If anything, I'm trying to give you a little bit of a break. So, open your minds and just, think about this stuff, okay? And let's see what happens.